Broadway up close. From the performances that will leave you in tears.
I think everybody can find sort of a piece of themselves within Evan.
To the ones that'll have you laughing out loud.
It's a cathartic, wonderful journey I get to do every night.
We're Backstage.
For me, I'm giddy like when I was in theater camp.
With Broadway's best.
Once the face is on, it's not me anymore.
Welcome, I'm Baruch Shemtov. This season on Broadway is one of the most exciting ones yet. There are star-studded revivals, movies transformed for the stage, and brand new shows tackling modern-day challenges. Here's a glimpse at what makes this year's production so special.
You're falling in a forest and there's nobody around.
In a season of debuts, the musical Dear Evan Hansen has stolen audiences' hearts and left them in tears. It's the story of a teen struggling with social anxiety as he tries to make his way through adolescence. And for the show's star, Ben Platt, it hits close to home.
Certainly can relate to feeling on the outside and having difficulty dropping in and being present and feeling like you're sort of prejudging yourself and living sort of outside of your own head, which is something I think is very universal, which is why I think everybody can find sort of a piece of themselves within Evan.
His co-star Mike Feist, who plays Connor Murphy, another struggling high schooler, says Connor's relationship with his onstage parents reflects a common conflict.
We don't want to allow people to see who we are, because if we do that, then we lose everything. Mm-hmm. And those parents, they recognize that, and they're trying their best. They're trying their best. Everyone's trying their best to make it work, and it doesn't always, you know. That relationship is a huge part of the beating heart of the show.
Those parents, Cynthia and Larry Murphy, are played by Jennifer Laura Thompson and Michael Park, both parents in real life, and their experience in the show has informed their own parenting styles.
What I have learned through Cynthia is that there's a tremendous amount of forgiveness to be had so that you can get through the rest of your life and know that there was a lot of good done as well as maybe mistakes that ended up making really good results. So forgiveness is the main thing.
Everyone is flawed. There's no perfect parent out there. I don't care who you are. But Larry's made me, and I say this a lot, Larry's made me a better parent. The fact that he's so detached and so removed from his kids' lives, and the fact that I've learned how to communicate better with my own children.
And while that is also a driving theme of the show on stage, off stage, Ben Platt is doing his best to hold on tight to the whirlwind experience that is Dear Evan Hansen. What's this whole process been like, bringing the character to life and now being nominated for a Tony?
It's really surreal. It kind of just keeps surpassing my expectations, you know, to get to originate a role in a piece that I believe so deeply in with people who I really love and respect, who I admire, with a cast that loves each other and connects with each other, and then for it to come on Broadway and connect with people and be a success, and then to have these nominations, it just kind of keeps topping itself. So I'm trying to really take in each moment because it's a ride that kind of gets away from you.
We're on in 3, 2.
Once a year, the eyes of the nation turn to this.
If you're looking for laughs, look no further than Groundhog Day, a new musical headlined by Broadway veteran Andy Karl in the role of TV weatherman Phil Connors.
It's a cathartic, wonderful journey I get to do every night.
The musical comedy was written by the mastermind behind the original Groundhog Day film, Danny Rubin. It's just as funny as the movie, but the stage version definitely stands on its own.
The challenge was figuring out how much we really needed. I kind of felt that the bare bones of the story didn't need to be interpreted the same way the movie was. We could re-explore the same story, and yet I didn't want to dishonor the people who love certain aspects of the movie.
I thought I'd seen it all.
Andy Karl embraced the new role, earning a Tony nomination for Best Actor in a Musical.
For a show that's so entrenched in pop culture, how do you really make this your own?
Oh gosh, well that's what's great about it, is that I think the show is its own beast, which means I have to be my own beast within it as well. The biggest thing I had to find out was what kind of a jerk is inside of me.
And what's the answer to that?
I found it.
What did it take to find that?
It's great. It took a lot of 8-show weeks, a lot of matinees.
But along the way, Karl encountered an unexpected roadblock when he tore his ACL during a preview performance just hours after this interview. Instead of quitting, he continued his Broadway run with a show must go on attitude, leg brace and all, fulfilling the ethos that has driven him from day one.
And that's what theater takes. It takes a lot of dedication. It's 8 shows a week, and it's a workout every night. I'm running a marathon in the show.
And with theater fans and critics praising his perseverance, his wife Orpha has stuck by his side, supporting him every step of the way, including his walk up the Met Gala red carpet the day before Tony nominations.
She's been everything. She's the one that got me on stage on Monday for opening night.
You hear that, Orpha?
I know. I had to do what I had to do.
I'm here.
But ultimately, as Andy Karl's saga has played out on the public stage, his character's story has only become more poignant, connecting with the audience show after show.
Phil is able to learn that the beauty is around him. The people that are near him enrich his life. The sun rising in the morning is a miracle. That takes some perspective, and that also speaks to us as humans, and I hope people take that away when they see it. For the first time.
In an unusual twist, two renowned actresses, Cynthia Nixon and Linney, alternate between the roles of Regina and Bertie in the revival of the play The Little Foxes, a story about family rivalry in Alabama circa 1900.
Oscar said I bored Mr. Marshall, but he admired you.
One performance, you may see Nixon as Regina with Linney as Bertie, and the next performance, they may switch. They've each been nominated for a Tony, one for each role, and Linney came up with the idea.
I had remembered that Cynthia had always wanted to play Regina, and quite frankly, I had always wanted to play Bertie. And so I thought, well, why don't we try this? And then also it was very selfish. I mean, I got to do something I've always wanted to do. 2 parts in one play.
And I thought that was because he liked me too.
Getting this to work seamlessly took practice.
What's the process like? How do you go through those rehearsals, rehearsing both roles?
Well, it was hard, and we were just improvising. We didn't know how to do it, really, but Laura would start as Regina, and I would start as Bertie, and then we would spend a few days doing that, and then we would get through, the first act, and then we would switch.
And the result still challenges the two stars.
This is, not only are you doing 2 parts on different nights, but then someone else is doing them, and you watch them, and you try not to watch them, and then you watch them some more, and, it's really wild. It's sort of like, sometimes I listen, and sometimes it's like, listening to your spouse cheat on you. It's like, I don't want to listen to this.
While this show is a fresh take on theater, the story is decades old.
The bigger point that Lillian Hellman is getting to, which is about greed and the greed of American capitalism and how it's sort of eating our country alive, it's a really good moment for that message, I think.
Backstage at Sunset Boulevard.
I love doing puzzles.
Glenn Close shares her pre-show rituals. Next.
Glenn Close is back on Broadway and back in a role that earned her a Tony 2 decades ago. We're talking about Sunset Boulevard, of course, and I was lucky enough to chat with Ms. Close right before she took the stage.
Sunset Boulevard, ruthless Boulevard.
Backstage at Sunset Boulevard, it's just hours before showtime. The energy is palpable at the Palace Theater with Michael Xavier, who plays Joe Gillis, and Siobhan Dillon, who plays Betty Schaefer, serving as our behind-the-scenes tour guides as they warm up for tonight's performance.
Let's go, guys. Okay.
Sunset Boulevard is a production with many moving pieces, some new and some harkening back to the past.
That's the original costume from over 20 years ago.
That was worn by Glenn 23 years ago, yeah. She has many of those in the show.
I don't want to be alone.
At the core is Glenn Close, who transforms into Norma Desmond in the sanctuary that is her private dressing room. Ms. Close, can we come in?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, when I came into his dressing room, he was kissing a pillow with your face on it. Are you not doing the same thing? Oh, yes. How are things different for you 23 years later doing the same show?
Very different. It's a different character. I'm 23 years older, which makes a big difference.
Why do you think the show has stayed so relevant for so many years?
Because it's about ageism and sexism, and it's about the really, really difficult entertainment business.
Do you think things have changed for women in show business?
It would be nice to have more wonderful parts for women. I, of course, am partial to parts for women of a certain age. Of course, I'm a certain age. But you haven't lost your power. You know, and you certainly are at the top of your craft. So the thing that's wonderful about this show for me is that it demands everything of me. It demands every single aspect of my craft that I've learned in the last 23 years.
For Close and her castmates, pre-show rituals are important, and backstage puzzle making has become a tradition.
I love doing puzzles.
But you know, the thing is, Glenn takes away the front cover of the puzzle, so we don't know what the puzzle makes up.
That's the meanest thing anybody could ever do.
No, it makes them up. Well, everybody's very good at puzzles, and they get into it, and you don't want them to do it in 2 days.
But it's Close's time alone here in her dressing room that is an integral part of preparing to be Norma Desmond.
Once the face is on, it's not me anymore. So I sit and kind of, get myself together.
Inside this hideaway, she's surrounded by objects and images that inspire her.
One of my muses is Emmett Kelly, who's one of our great clowns. That particular expression on his face, to me, is like humanity.
And always close behind her is her canine companion, Pippi.
Pippi is brilliant, and he is part of our company.
Ms. Close, I've made a new friend. I'm done with this interview. I'm on to the next one. Hello. The perfect setting for a legend transforming into her legendary character. Thank you for having us.
Welcome to our theater.
Tackling current events on the stage.
Artists have to decide, are we going to curate history, or are we going to be part of history?
How the theater community is raising awareness while also raising spirits.
The theater can play a very important role during such tense political times. Fox 5's Amy Cohen shows us the different ways artists are reacting to current events.
Broadway is known for its bright lights and entertaining shows, but it also has a long history of tackling some very tough topics. It's a tradition the theater community continues to embrace in a variety of ways. We saw it in Rodgers and Hammerstein's South Pacific back in 1949. Looking back on World War II, just a few years after it ended, the show, later made into a movie, confronted the harsh reality of racism.
To hate all the people your relatives hate.
Fast forward to 2017, and a play about President Trump's anti-immigration policies is taking the stage off-Broadway in New York.
I wrote this in October, towards the end of the month, before the election. And like many people, just very, very upset and anxious at one of the more dispiriting presidential campaigns in modern history.
You might be familiar with the playwright Robert Shankin. He won a Pulitzer for his play The Kentucky Cycle, a Tony for All the Way, and recently wrote the screenplay for the film Hacksaw Ridge. His latest work, Building the Wall, took him just 1 week to complete the first draft.
I felt when I wrote it, the urgency, the reason that I wrote is that I felt that even then, a week before the election, even then, a line had been crossed in this country. And we had moved into dangerous and uncharted territory.
Building the Wall is set in the fall of 2019. It focuses on efforts to detain immigrants in a private prison after a terrorist attack.
The issues at stake here are not Republican versus Democrat or even liberal versus conservative. The current political crisis that we're experiencing, and I choose my words very, very carefully here, and I do consider it a crisis, is an assault, a concerted assault on fundamental American values, the values that make our extraordinary republic what it is.
It usually takes years for a new play to reach audiences, but Shankin feels in today's fast-paced world, the reaction from artists needs to be immediate.
We've got to be more fleet of foot. We've got to be more responsive. You know, our artists have to decide, are we going to curate history, or are we going to be part of history? Broadway
producers Seth Rudetsky and James Wesley also had an immediate reaction. For them, it was last year's horrific nightclub shooting in Orlando.
I woke up early the next morning, and instead of watching the news, which I just could not bring myself to do, I decided to do something healthy and go for a bike ride. And weirdly, I had been listening to Dionne Warwick's version of What the World Needs Now Is Love, and it was on Spotify on my phone. And as I was riding along the Hudson River, it came to me, it's like, oh, we are the world. It's like, it would be really amazing to get a lot of our Broadway friends and their friends to sing it.
And in an instant, Broadway for Orlando was born.
He woke me up, gave me the idea, and I texted Idina Menzel. I mean, literally. And then they just began flowing.
The recording has raised more than $100,000 for the LGBT Center in Orlando.
Good for everyone.
Several months later, Seth and James were at it again, this time with an event to coincide with President Trump's inauguration, a concert for America aimed at bringing people together after an election that left our country divided.
It's a combination of celebrity, music, and everyday people telling their stories. And that really is the heart of it.
Cheetah Rivera, Jesse Mueller, and Billy Porter were just some of the big stars who jumped on board. The concert, now being held once a month, raises money for 5 different nonprofits.
I call it infusing them with hope so that they become active citizens. And to remind them they're not alone.
Just another reminder of how powerful the theater can be.
You can hear about racism and feel bad for it, but in South Pacific, when you see it played out in front of you, so you feel for the characters, and then there's music attached to it, there's so much more emotion you feel, and that is the power, I feel, of musical theater.
A sentiment echoed by Robert Schenken.
You know, it's so easy to feel dispirited and a little hopeless and a little overwhelmed. That's a normal response to what's happening right now. That's not where this play leaves the audience. That's not at all where this play leaves the audience, and that's what art can do.
It's the place where stars and fans unite.
Hey, guys.
The unique tradition of the Broadway stage door. When we return.
One of the great traditions on Broadway is the stage door, a rare opportunity for audiences to connect with actors right after the show. I got to see the incredible impact it has on both fans and stars at one of Broadway's hottest musicals.
And this is all in your program.
Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 is a fresh new musical inspired by War and Peace.
It's a complicated Russian novel.
It's this year's most Tony-nominated show, with 12 nods, including Best Musical, and acting nominations for Lucas Steele, who plays Anatole, and Josh Groban, who's making his Broadway debut in the role of Pierre.
I came to the show as a fan of the show. I saw Lucas in the show when it was downtown in the tent, and just immediately was just so enamored with the talent of this incredible cast. And so, for me, I'm giddy like when I was in theater camp.
What does it feel like being nominated on your Broadway debut?
It makes me want to just keep working hard.
For Groban, Steele, and actors across the Great White Way, the stage door is a tradition that caps off every performance. And today, the fans waiting outside the Imperial Theater were eager to get some FaceTime with their favorite stars. Who are you guys excited to see right now?
Josh Groban! Josh Groban!
There's no wall, all right? At the movies, there's a wall, there's a veil. Here, you're right there.
It's this amazing immersive experience in the show itself, so going back and like seeing the stage door is like another layer of immersivity.
When I meet actors, it feels like here's my idol and I'm seeing them like face to face.
And the enthusiasm is mutual.
Appreciate it, thanks.
So guys, you just finished the show, now it's time for the stage door.
That's right,
This is a very Broadway concept. Why is the stage door so important?
I think it's when people come from far, far away and they pay this much money to travel and see a Broadway show. I remember being that kid that was out there and waiting for that like small glimpse of time.
And what makes that interaction so special?
Well, we've been singing into their faces all night. This is such an immersive show that we've been sharing spit and DNA all night. So
feet away from us.
Yeah, they're so close to us. So many of them that we see at stage door, like we've seen them in character all night. And this is our chance, like as us, to just kind of give them a high five and say, "You guys were a great crowd. Thanks so much."
All right, let's go do it. Okay. Now you can go out and be our decoy.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll think, oh, you're ripped. They're gonna think you're in the show. So you go out and start signing first, and then we'll sneak out.
friends.
All right.
Hey guys. Thanks for screaming loud for us. Your shaking was some of the finest shaking we've had so far at this show, and we've had some fine shaking, but you guys were the best. Thank you.
All right, the show is over, the stage door is over. What happens now? We have another show to do, so now we're gonna go in and eat some soup and nap. Can I come? Not weird at all. Let's go. Let's go. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope this inspires you to get out and enjoy a Broadway show. For Fox 5 News, I'm Baruch Shemtov. Good night.